All right, everyone, get ready for a deep dive that's seriously inspiring.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about a guy who went from like a tiny village in China
Wow.
all the way to being a tenured professor in the US.
No kidding.
And the coolest thing is
Yeah.
we've got his personal account, not just like a boring resume.
That's awesome. So we get all the juicy
And
details.
all the behind the scenes stuff, yeah.
Oh,
Like how he felt, what he struggled with, all that.
so it's more than just a success story, then.
Oh, for sure. It's a look into the Chinese education system, too.
Ah, that's interesting.
It's intense, like super competitive.
I bet.
And he grew up with this saying, knowledge changes destiny.
Whoa. That's a lot of pressure.
Right. So imagine rural China, a young boy
Okay, I'm picturing it.
with this idea that education is everything.
Classic underdog story.
Totally. But even underdogs have their, tough times.
Of course. No one's perfect.
And his early years weren't exactly stellar academically.
Oh, so he wasn't a prodigy from the start.
Not really. He was kind of just blending in.
I can relate to that.
Right. It's a good reminder that potential, well, it's not always obvious right away.
Yeah, sometimes it takes a while to, find your thing.
Exactly.
Uh,
And for him, things kind of clicked in middle school.
oh, so he became a star student.
He started getting good grades, yeah.
What do you think changed?
Who knows? Maybe he found a good study method or discovered he loved math.
Could be. We all have those moments where things just click.
Absolutely. But just as he's hitting his stride, boom, family problems.
Oh no, what happened?
They had to move right before a big exam.
Talk about bad timing.
Right. But he handled it, still got into a decent high school.
Resilience right there.
Yeah.
So what about those top universities did he get in?
Not quite. And then comes the Gaokao. Have you heard of it?
The Gaokao. Yeah, it's like the SATs, but way more intense.
Well, way more. It basically decides your whole future in China.
Wow, that's a lot riding on one test.
But get this. He picked universities and majors, randomly.
I didn't do any research.
Yeah. Nope. Like throwing darts at a board, hoping for the best.
I bet a lot of listeners can relate to that feeling of what am I doing?
Oh, totally. I've been there. So he ends up at a university in Western Hunan. Not his first choice, but he got his degree.
So did he finally figure things out in college?
He says those years were, average. But he did join some clubs, tried to be more outgoing.
That's good, trying new things.
He even jokes about how he actually liked being a homebody.
Uh-huh. Some of us are just wired that way.
Totally. Then, after graduation, he's not exactly thrilled about a 9 to 5.
Who is right after college?
So, what's next? A master's degree.
Makes sense. But was he passionate about anything specific?
He actually admits it wasn't about passion. It was more like more education equals better life,
Ah, the classic trap. I think we've all fallen for that at some point.
Totally. And maybe because he wasn't super into it, he didn't get into his top program.
Oh, that's a bummer. So what happened?
So this is where the Chinese system gets interesting. There's this thing called Tiaoji.
Kiaoji. What's that?
Think of it as like a last-minute academic shuffle.
Interesting.
Through this Tiaoji thing, he ends up in a master's program for material sciences.
Material sciences. And how did he feel about that?
Well, guess what? It was considered a dead-end major in China at the time.
Oh, the irony. You can't make this stuff up.
Right. But even with a master's, he's still avoiding the job market.
So what did he do?
He decides to go for a doctorate.
Wow, that's a big decision.
It is, and his family was super supportive.
It makes a huge difference having that support system.
Absolutely. So he sets his sights on a prestigious 985 university. Think like the Ivy League of China.
Okay, got it. Top tier.
But he doesn't get in. First try, failure.
Oh, that's got to be tough.
But he doesn't give up. Next year, he tries again.
Good for him.
This time, he aims for a 211 university. Still very competitive, but maybe one step down.
Got it. So, going from aiming for the Olympics to a national championship, still impressive.
Exactly. And this time, he gets in. He's officially in a doctoral program.
That's fantastic.
And this is where things get really interesting. His doctoral studies, they're like a total turning point.
I can't wait to hear about it.
Me too. But that's for our next part.
So before we were talking about how his master's years were kind of a blur, right?
Yeah, he barely mentioned them.
But then in his doctorate, it's like, bam, he's suddenly publishing all this impactful research.
I know, right? It's a total 180.
He even got recognized for his doctoral thesis.
It's like he found a hidden talent or something.
Maybe he did. Who knows?
Seriously, though, what do you think changed?
Well, the environment plays a huge role, you know?
Yeah,
He
true.
talks about his doctoral advisor,
Oh,
a
yeah.
young professor who really pushed him.
I see. So he had a good mentor.
Exactly. Someone who believed in him and challenged him.
That makes a big
It
difference.
can be life-changing having someone like that in your corner.
Totally. He also mentions a 6-month exchange program in Germany.
Oh, cool.
And he's like gushing about it, talking about all the fancy equipment he got to use.
Like a kid in a candy store. Right.
Totally. And he collected tons of data.
And that data wasn't just sitting around either,
Right. He published a bunch of papers from his time in Germany.
both on his own and with collaborators.
It shows you the power of like international collaborations, you know?
Absolutely. Getting exposed to different research environments can be so valuable.
So here's this guy who started off kind of lost, not knowing what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
And now he's publishing cutting-edge research, presenting at conferences, making connections.
Total transformation.
It's like he leveled up in the game of academia.
It's a good reminder that finding your passion, well, it's not always a straight path.
Yeah, there could be detours.
Setbacks, even those dead-end majors.
Right. But it's about being open to new experiences.
And putting in the effort when something clicks.
I love that. So he wraps up his doctorate. He's on a roll. What's next?
Let me guess. He finally decides to get a real job.
Well, he enters what he calls his postdoctoral years.
Ah, the postdoc life.
He spent about 5 years bouncing between positions.
Where'd he go?
Germany, the UK, and finally the US.
So he was really honing his skills, becoming an expert.
Exactly. And making connections all over the world.
That's pretty typical in academia, especially in the sciences.
Yeah.
Postdoctoral positions are like the training ground before you can try for a faculty position.
It's like the internship for PhDs, right?
Right. You get to specialize, work in different labs, contribute to research.
And then finally he lands a faculty position
About time.
at a public university in Southern California.
Not bad.
And not just any position, he's on the tenure track.
Tenure track. Now that's a big deal.
I know, right? It's like the holy grail of academia.
It's basically a permanent contract, right?
Pretty much. Job security and academic freedom.
So he can focus on his research and teaching without worrying about losing his job.
And it's super competitive to get.
You have to prove yourself not just as a researcher, but as a teacher and a contributor to your field.
So getting tenure, it's like the ultimate validation.
It's proof that all his hard work paid off.
He officially made it, living the American dream.
You'd think so, but
Well,
he doesn't stop there.
Of course not. He's a go-getter.
He mentions that his first PhD student just graduated.
Oh, wow.
And that's a big moment for him.
Why is that?
Because it means he's transitioning from focusing on his own achievements to mentoring others.
Oh, I see. Passing the torch.
Exactly. Helping to shape the next generation of scholars.
It's kind of poetic, right?
It is, from a kid in rural China believing knowledge is everything.
Yeah, becoming the person who guides others.
It's a beautiful cycle.
But it's important to remember, it wasn't always easy for him.
Of course not.
There were bumps in the road, moments of doubt.
And probably a good dose of luck along the way.
Right. He admits that luck and timing played a role.
Absolutely, alongside his hard work and persistence.
It's a good reminder that we don't always control everything.
Even the best laid plans can go awry.
So his story shows us that success isn't a straight line.
It's about adapting, learning from setbacks, and pushing yourself.
What do you find most inspiring about his journey?
His willingness to embrace uncertainty, to make big decisions, even when he didn't have all the answers.
That takes courage.
It does. It's about trusting the journey, even when you can't see the destination.
You've covered a lot of ground here.
We have, from rural China to the world of academia in the U.S.
It's been a journey of perseverance, mentorship, and ultimately achieving a dream.
And the weird part is, his story isn't over yet.
Who knows what he'll do next?
That's what makes it so exciting.
So what can our listeners take away from all this?
We'll be right back to unpack the key takeaways and see what we can learn from his experience. So we've been on quite a journey with this guy, haven't we?
We have, from rural China all the way to becoming a professor in the U.S.
It's a reminder that success, it's not always what you expect.
Right. It's rarely a straight line.
Lots of twists and turns.
And sometimes you end up somewhere you never thought you'd be.
But he never gave up. He kept learning, kept pushing himself.
And look where he ended up.
It's inspiring, isn't it?
It really is. What stands out to you the most about his story?
I think it's the importance of being open to new possibilities, even if they seem a bit, off the beaten path.
Like that dead-end major he ended up in.
Exactly. It turned out to be a crucial step in his journey.
Sometimes those unexpected detours lead to the best destinations.
And don't forget about the mentors who helped him along the way.
They played a huge role in his success.
They believed in him, they challenged him, they guided him.
It makes you think about all the people who've helped us in our own lives, doesn't it?
It does. We don't achieve anything alone.
We need those mentors, those champions in our corner.
And now he's paying it forward by mentoring his own students,
That's the beauty of it. It's a cycle.
passing on the knowledge and support to the next generation.
But it's also important to remember that success takes work. Lots of it.
Oh yeah, he didn't just magically become a professor.
He put in the time, the effort, the dedication.
And probably pulled a few all-nighters along the way.
I bet he did. But that's what it takes sometimes.
It's about the journey, the struggles, the triumphs.
It's about learning from our mistakes and never giving up.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's think about our own lives for a moment.
What seemingly unrelated experiences might be shaping our paths right now?
How can we, like this guy, leverage our unique journeys to achieve our goals?
Every experience, every challenge, every victory, it all adds up.
It's about connecting the dots, recognizing the value in our own stories
And using those stories to propel us forward.
to create the future we want.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure exploring this incredible journey with you.
We'll see you next time for another fascinating deep dive.
Until then,